When I think about harassment in general, I think of probably, it may not be the most egregious situation, but in my career, it seems to be one of the most painful. There was an employee that I was in my client group, and one day her manager approached me and said, I think that you should talk to this engineer in my group. And I was like, okay, what are the specifics? And she said, I can't really go there, but I think you should talk to her. She wasn't really comfortable telling me this. So I sat down with this employee to figure out what her story was. And she just starts shaking, visibly shaking, starts crying. And I was like, hey, what's happened? Like, why are you crying? And she said, I feel like I may have screwed up. And I was like, well, tell me what you think you screwed up. Apparently, she'd been at the company 8 months or so. Her first day there was an engineer who was really nice to her, a peer of hers. He was very nice to her, and he helped onboard her, helped her get settled, introduced her to people, and so she felt like she owed this guy, something because he was so nice to her. He started asking her out probably week 2 on the job, and by this point she'd been at the company 8 months. He asked her out. She had a boyfriend. She said, hey, I have a boyfriend, please don't do that. He started getting more aggressive and asking her out. She still just said no, joked around with him. Every now and then would go out to lunch with him to hopefully, in her mind, get him off her back. Then he started buying her gifts. Then he started, she was an engineer on pager duty. He would page her messages to her pager, call her, email. And I said, well, what sort of volume are you looking at? And she's, well, I knew you would ask me that. So she hands me a folder. There's over 100 plus emails in there of him emailing her constantly. He found her personal email address. He found her home address, showed up to her house a couple times. So she just had outlined for me a litany, just verbally, and I asked her to then document it all and provide it to me. And she was just in tears. I don't want to get him in trouble. He onboarded me. He's a nice guy. I don't know if I can live with myself if something bad happens to him. I had to reassure her that the coming into work should be a safe haven for you. It should be a safe environment where you can come into work and be the best possible employee you can be, create the best possible work you can create, and not come into work scared or nervous that this guy is going to hit on you again. He didn't do anything. He didn't touch her. Some people might look at it and say, how egregious was it? He didn't physically touch her. But that's not what harassment is. Harassment doesn't have to be physically touching someone. It's creating a toxic environment where you're continually doing something that makes someone uncomfortable. And after you ask someone out once and they say no, your right to ask them out again has been revoked.